everybody to just shut down what you're working on. I'd love you to put your phone away, try to remove some of those distractions. This is your time to get really present with your business. This is an opportunity for you to be working on anything that's coming up for you in your business, anything that may be troubling. For those of you that haven't been to one of these sessions before, my name is Lindsay Troxell. I am the founder of our coaching initiative, and I'm your head coach and instructor for this program inside of the Coaching Collective. I've got over 20 years as a certified coach. I've worked with hundreds, if not thousands, of businesses across that 20-year time frame. And they've really ranged from small startups to multi-billion-dollar firms. And I've helped them in the areas of strategy, team development, client experience, leadership, M&A, you name it, we've worked on it. So if you found your way here into the business cohort, I'm assuming that either you're an entrepreneur or you're an aspiring entrepreneur, or maybe you're even inside of an organization and you hold a leadership role. So whatever it is for you, you're in the right place. These sessions really have been created for you so that you can have a combination of getting coached as well as learning different topics that will help your business thrive. So whatever's happening in your world, as I said earlier, bring it to these sessions, whether it's personal or professional. Oftentimes, some of the things that are happening inside of our personal life will shift over into our professional world. So feel free to bring those to these sessions as well. If you haven't had a chance to watch our welcome videos inside of the coaching portal, I highly recommend that you do so. This is going to give you some of the basics around the model that we will be using for coaching. We're going to be talking a little bit about that today here as well, but you can definitely dive further into those topics in those short video series that I created in the Start Here section on the portal. If you have attended some of the other sessions, I'm sure that this is a little bit of a replay for you right now, but let me talk a little more about how the session works, right? So we start off with teaching a topic. Today in particular, we're going to be talking about how to get results, and specifically how to ask yourself really powerful questions that essentially will create a business plan for you. So it doesn't matter where in your business journey you are. You could be in business for 25 years. You could be starting up. You could be just trying to take on a new project. Whatever it is for you, these powerful questions will help you to construct the right plan that will help you to get the results that you're looking for. Then at the end of the session, what we're going to do is we are going to pull somebody on to do some coaching on what they're working on currently in their business. So if you had the opportunity to either submit a request ahead of time, we will always give those folks priority. So if you've got something pressing that you want to be working on, make sure you go into the portal and submit your coaching request there. You can do that 12 hours before a session. If we don't get requests, then what we will do is we'll pull somebody on live that's interested in just doing some coaching that comes into the session. And if not, then we will go ahead and end the call early, and that's okay too. But I want to make sure that we get to everybody that wants to be coached. And so submitting your request beforehand is the best way to make sure that we have time to reach your particular needs. Okay, so we'll dive further into that later on. Other housekeeping items, I just want everybody to know that you are muted. We can't see you. When you submit things through our chat feature, I am the only person that can see it. So please go ahead and interact during the session. I want to make sure that we can all learn from each other and make sure that you are getting the most that you possibly can. When we hear from other people and what they're experiencing, even if it's not exactly the same thing that we're going through inside of our business, we can take it and apply different elements to what we're working on. So it's a very helpful way to interact in these sessions. All right, so let's go ahead and just dive right in. I would like you to open the chat. So everybody go ahead and do that. And here's what I want to know from you. Okay, so what business are you in? Give me a little background, what your business is, what role you hold inside of that business, how long you've been running that business, and how many employees you have. And if you aren't inside of a business today, if you are maybe a budding entrepreneur and looking to launch your business, I want you to tell me a little bit about what it is that you'd like to launch and what the time frame is for that launch. So if you could open up your chat feature and just give me an idea of who's in the session today. Okay, so we've got one here, law firm, founding partner, 25 years, 12 employees. Fantastic, very specific. I love it, right on task. We've got one, I'm a real estate investor. I'm the owner of the business, been doing it for about 10 years-ish. One VA, so one virtual assistant, and one part-time bookkeeper. Fabulous. All right. Tech firm, CEO, 4 years, 3 team members, a mix of contractors and W-2s. Fantastic. All right. Looking to launch a consulting business within the next 12 months. Fabulous. What kind of consulting business? Just curious. Multiple businesses. So real estate investment, drop shipping. Interesting. It's a fun combination there. There's actually somebody else on this call that might like perk their ears up about that combination. We own a restaurant franchise. Owner, 7 years. I love this. Oh gosh, I don't know exactly, 30-ish. I'm assuming that's your employee count. That's great. All right, so we've got a great mix on the call today. Real estate investing, 5 years, building a virtual team, also acquisition entrepreneur, acquire a business with 1 million EBITDA in the services industry. Thank you. In the next 6 months. Love it. Love it. Fantastic. Okay, so we do have a great mix, right? Got a lot of different types of businesses on the call. Again, everything that you're going through doesn't matter that you've got a different business maybe than the next person. We're all in this entrepreneurial journey and we've all got this room to grow. And we all have moments specifically, this is the thing that is similar between all of us, where our minds ultimately get in the way of what it is that we're trying to achieve. And the reason for that is because we're human, right? And as much as we try, sometimes our primitive brains get in the way. If you've listened to any of the other sessions that we've done this month, we've really been talking about this concept of awareness and how our thoughts determine the quality of our life and how we have over 60,000 thoughts a day and that 70 to 80% of those thoughts are negative. So the way that we think determines how we feel. And then the way that we feel dictates what actions we take or don't take. And those actions are what create our results. So if we aren't actively choosing what it is that we want to be thinking, then the results that you're creating are actually coming from like this non-conscious chatter inside of our brain, instead of coming from this intentional directive place. Okay. This applies in our personal lives as well as within our organizations. And this happens not just for you as the business owner, but it also happens for your team members as well, because they also have brains that need to be managed, right? So part of what makes running a business with employees so difficult is transferring what it is that you're thinking in a way that your employees understand and then interpret what you're asking for in order for them to then take the right actions. Out of like the hundreds of businesses that I've worked with, this is probably at the top of the list when I see teams struggling, that miscommunication between the two brains. We're going to talk more about this in future sessions, but for today, what's important to take away from that concept is that whatever it is that you're trying to create as a result in your business, right? It starts with creating awareness of your relationship that you have with the result that you want to create. Okay. Specifically, what I mean by that is the thoughts that you have about the results that you want to create. So, for example, if you wanted to put a result that you wanted to create into this model, you could do it in 2 different ways. You could plug it into the results line and you could ask yourself, what are the actions that I need to take in order to create that results? Therefore, what do I need to feel in order to take those actions? What do I need to think in order to feel that way? That could help you to get that result. But you also can put the result into the circumstance line here and ask yourself, what am I thinking about the result that I want to create? Okay. And when I think that way, what does that make me feel? And when I feel that way, what are the actions that I take? And then from those actions, do I actually get the result that I desire? Okay. So this awareness that we're trying to create, it's really by starting to ask yourself super powerful questions. And the more powerful the question is, the more awareness it's going to create. Okay, so let's open the chat feature back up again. We're back to that interactive portion of the call. I want you to think about a result that you want to create for yourself and your business over the next 12 months. Okay, that's what we're going to be really focusing our attention on, is how to create powerful results inside of your business. And what we're going to do, and kind of the following slides here for the rest of the call, it's a relatively simple formula that I've been using with teams for years. It's 10 questions that you're going to ask yourself that will ensure that you get those results. In fact, these are really so simple that I doubt that anybody's mind is going to be blown today, but it's shocking to me that the number of teams that are trying to create results, they don't sit down and actually do this work. They don't ask themselves these questions, okay? And for whatever reason, at the beginning of this year, I was working with a multi-billion-dollar firm, and they got to where they were without having a plan like this. And that's what I think is so fascinating, is that in order to get to the next level, they had wonderful growth, but it wasn't directed, and they were stumbling upon themselves, and they weren't able to make it to the next level. So they were able to get to a really great place. But once they sat down and started asking themselves these 10 questions that we're going to go through today, they were able to skyrocket their growth. Okay. So let's see. Let's look at so what are some of the results that you want to create here? Okay. Investing in 4 more properties this year. Open a new location. Hire a new junior level attorney that will be able to grow into a future partner. Fabulous. I feel like I'm being so lazy. I want to create more organization to how things flow within the business. Okay. Creating the framework, pricing structure, marketing engine, etc. Purchase a new business. Launch a new program. These are great. Okay. So here's what I want you to start thinking about. How can we get more specific? Okay. Everybody's heard about SMART goals. Those are specific, measurable, realistic, and time bound. When we're thinking about that high level result that we want to create, we do want to get as specific as possible. When it comes to the execution, though, I tend to like the FAST method a little bit more than the SMART method. So that's where it's frequent, ambitious, specific, and transparent. And that is what's going to help you cascade your goals and the results that you want to create to the rest of your team. We're going to talk a little bit more about that as we get a little further into our session for today. Okay, just want to check to see if there was any others that are in here. Nope. Okay, that's good. So as you're thinking about these results and what it is that you want to create, I want you, as we go through the rest of these questions, question your thinking about what we are doing. Okay. If your brain offers you junk, which it will do because you are human, things like, this is too complicated, this is going to take too long, this isn't going to work, or something like, I just need to get to the work. I don't know if anybody's ever gone through that process where you almost think that the planning portion of getting your results is a waste of time. You just need to get to the work. Instead of thinking about what it is that you need to do, you just need to do it. If there's anybody who's like a big action taker out there, that tends to be where you try to go first, is like, how do we act our way out of this situation? How do we create enough momentum and just start going without having to sit down and do this tedious work of planning ahead of time? So just question and become aware of the thoughts that you're having about going through this process. Okay, so as you put in your results that you wanted to create for yourself, and now I want you to ask yourself this question: why is it important that you create these results? Okay. Why is it important that you want to create these results? And I'd like to hear from you as to why what you're trying to create matters here to your business. So open up the chat again. What is your no matter what reason? What is so compelling to you that you are like going to do it no matter what? What do you believe will be different on the other side of these results for you? Again, it doesn't matter how long you've been in the business. Your why really is the most important thing that's going to keep you moving forward. And without using that kind of visualization technique of what's in the future for you, then whatever it is that you're trying to create, it's not going to be as tangible. Okay. So without it and without visualizing where you have actually achieved what you want to achieve and the result and the impact that it's made on your business and on your life, it's so easy for us to get distracted by everything else that's going on around us. Okay. So why is this important that you create this result for yourself? Okay. So let's see here. I don't want to be working forever and I need the next generation to take over. Fantastic. Okay. So let me ask you this question. Why don't you want to be working forever? Right? This is the next level. Like, I don't want to be working forever. That's great. That could provide you some meaning here. But why don't you want to be working forever? And what does the other side of you working look like? That could be much more compelling for you than just thinking, I don't want to be working forever and I need the next generation to take over. All right. So I'm so stressed. I can't get out of my own way. Wonderful. Okay. So I'm so stressed and I can't get out of my own way. What would the opposite of being stressed look like? What would it look like to be out of your own way? What does that mean to you? The more specific you can get, the more concrete you can make that vision of why, and the more positive direction you'll take it, the more compelling it is going to be for you to move yourself forward to that result. I'll purchase a new business so that I can have more control over reaching my goals, so I can have more time to do the things that I want to do. Fantastic. So again, if you can get even more specific with the why and the things that you really want to be doing, that can be more compelling. All right, let's look at another one here. My 10-year goal hinges on us doing these 4 deals. It's the only way we will keep pace. Fantastic. So that one, in my opinion, is pretty specific. You know, you've got a pretty clear idea that the thing that you want to create for the future is hinging on you continuing to take the action that's necessary to get these 4 deals done. Okay. The only way you can make that more compelling is if you got more specific and gave us a little bit more color there. Okay. Here's the last one that I've got. So I don't want to be working inside my current job any longer, and jobs in quotes. But I keep putting this goal off because I can't seem to find the motivation to work after hours or on the weekend to get it done. Okay, so I can totally feel that one. I'm sure that there are other people on this call that have gone from the corporate world into the entrepreneurial space. In that process, that kind of in-between phase that you experience when you're trying to dip your toe into the entrepreneurial realm. The way that I like to think about it sometimes, there's that quote that's like, don't use your weekends to escape from the life that you have, use it to build the life that you want. Right. And so when you are able to start visualizing that life that you want in the future, it will help you to make more of that commitment today. So maybe instead of using that negative why, try going to that positive why. So what do you want to create as that life for you in the future? What will look different from what you currently have? That could be much more compelling. And there's other people on the call that are saying, I'm struggling terribly with that right now. So you're not alone. I will say that I too just went through that recently. So, you know, finding a balance between a few things here, it's really compelling when you get to that other side. If you put yourself into the future, visualize exactly what it is that you will be creating on the other side. It will help you to get through some of the, I like to call it like just getting through some of the suck. Some of the stuff that you're going to do right now isn't going to feel good. You're taking some of that pain right now for the pleasure later on of being in a place that you really, really desire to be. So that's just, again, you're not alone. All right, so let's go on to question number 3. So how are you going to practice constraint with this goal? When we get working on a goal, what our brains tend to do is what they've been designed to do. So if anybody's worked with me in the past, we talk a lot about the motivational triad in our brain and how it is designed to seek pleasure, avoid pain, and try to be as efficient as humanly possible. And as business owners, what we need to do is fight against that primitive brain consistently, right? Our brains were not designed to thrive. They were designed to survive. And as we're working on our goal and trying on new things, what our brain is going to try to do is tempt us. And it's also going to tempt your team with all of these different ways that will avoid the pain associated with trying on something new and maybe not having it work out. Or it's going to be suffering the pain of concentrating, okay? So it distracts us. It tries to seek pleasures in forms of new ideas or social media or other opportunities or day-to-day work. I've got a question in here. So I find that I talk about my goal a ton and I get really excited about the possibility of achieving it, but I don't seem to take action the way that I need to in order to get it done. Is this what you're talking about here? Yes. Yeah, absolutely. That's 100% what I'm talking about here. So with what's going on, in fact, if anybody's interested in a really great podcast, I absolutely love Huberman Labs. It's with Dr. Andrew Huberman. He had a session or an episode with Anna Lembke, who is the author of Dopamine Nation. And in that episode, they were actually talking about addiction and the power of the neurotransmitter dopamine and its association with pleasure. But what's super interesting is that we can get small dopamine hits simply by talking about our goal. Okay. So what you're describing here is that you're actually, when you're talking about it, you get super excited because you're talking about your goal and you're sharing it with others and you get that dopamine hit. But then what happens is immediately following, we get the pain associated with doing the work to achieve the goal. Okay. And that pain is actually much higher than the dopamine reward. So we end up not necessarily taking action. We almost derive the same amount of pleasure by telling people about our goal that we would if we actually achieved it. And we don't have to experience the pain of doing the work in between, okay? So our brains are, again, they're just trying to be super efficient and they'll keep you doing the same thing over and over and over again, even if it's not going to get you the results that you want. That's why it can be so hard for us to take on something new. And if we know that our brains are just going to get distracted and look for pleasure and avoid the pain and then get stuck in what they've always done, and this is just part of the process, what kind of constraints do we want to put in place? Okay, think about that. We can sometimes think about constraints as being negative. So if you actually have a negative connotation to the word constraint, I want you to think about that for a second. For me, constraint means that I have created some sort of container that actually allows me to operate the way that I say that I want to operate without getting distracted. Another way to think about this is to list out all of the distraction, like the distracted action that you're taking. Think about scrolling social media, reorganizing your office, putting away files, talking to other people about what it is that you want to get done, searching the internet, researching, like whatever it is, consuming versus creating. Okay. These are all examples where you're essentially just moving a pile of paper from one side of your desk to the other side of the desk. It feels like you're doing a ton, but you're not moving towards the action that's really going to get you the result. Right. So this is going to allow you to create a plan for what typically pulls your distraction away from your goal, and then is going to help ensure that you're going to get the work done in the timeline that you desire. This also means, though, that you need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And then you need to learn to actually sacrifice your current pleasure for that future pleasure of achieving the result that you say that you want to achieve. All right, number 4, how are you going to measure success? So this is my favorite visual. If you look at this slide, I think it's fantastic. You've got, on the vertical axis, you've got sucking versus not sucking. And on the horizontal, you've got past versus the future. I just think it's fantastic. So this one is really about the leading and the lagging indicators of success. How are you going to measure the success that you have? We tend to only really think about the lagging indicators of success, the results of our effort, like revenue. But when we only focus on those lagging indicators, what we can't do is correct ourselves along the way. We can't course correct, right? So what we need to do is wait and really dive into what it is that we're trying to measure, what are the results we want to create, and then figure out what are the leading indicators or the action steps that we can take, that when we just take those steps, we will end up getting our results. That's what we want to measure, okay? So some examples here, like leading indicators would be calories in. The lagging indicator or like leading indicators would be like calories in, calories out, versus the lagging indicator of weight, or the leading indicator of using a standard operating procedure guide. And then the lagging indicator would be the number of errors, or the leading indicator might be something like the number of new prospect meetings versus the lagging indicator of revenue. So this is where you want to start to get really clear on what it is that you're going to measure. And also this pulls in that FAST framework that we talked about earlier. So that stood for frequent, ambitious, specific, and transparent. So the frequency here, you want to make sure that you're bringing your metrics and your measurements into regular meetings with your team. You want to make sure it's really, really clear. You want to make sure they're ambitious, right? So they aren't just something that's easy to attain. You've got to reach a little bit in order to get them, but they aren't overly complicated and they're not completely out of reach. They have to be super specific. So you need to know like the time bound, you need to have the quantifiable elements in there. And then you also want to make sure it's transparent. So everybody can see it on a regular basis. It's not hidden behind the scenes. SMART goals, when they were created, they were more on the individual basis. And the reason that they aren't used necessarily as frequently these days is because of that transparency element. So we want to make sure that everybody's able to understand what metrics we're working towards, and you've got a great way to track them. All right, number 5. So where are you in relation to your goal? What is the truth about where you are today? This one's going to help you really understand what needs to be uncovered and what you need to work through in our next question number 6. And that's going to be, what are the steps that you need to take? So you want to be thinking about where you are. That will help you to understand what you need to do. The way that I like to think about this sometimes is more of like the road trip that you might be taking, right? Let's say that you're going to be taking a road trip. You're driving from San Diego to Boston. You need to know you're leaving from San Diego versus leaving from LA versus leaving from San Francisco in order to know which direction you're going to go, in order for you to build that really concrete roadmap. So this is the exact same thing. You got to know where you are today in relation to what you're trying to do. If you are a team of 3 and you're already at max capacity and you don't have a really great system in order to make sure that you're going to be able to bridge that gap, we can't just jump from here to where we want to go without maybe hiring some additional people. So you've got to get really true about what it is that you are currently dealing with. What is the truth about where you are today? That leads us into number 6 here. So what are the steps that you need to take in order to achieve that goal? Okay, so this is going to help you to map out that route. Where are you going to stop along the way? This is going to include sub-questions, and some of those are things like, what are you willing to do in order to achieve your goal? How much planning are you willing to put in? What kind of experiment can you design and test out? So list out all of the steps that are involved in making sure that you actually achieve this result, okay? So this is more of like a brainstorming exercise. Just get it down on paper, pull everything out of your brain, everything that's involved. Don't try to structure it. Just list it all out, all of the actions that you're going to need. And then think about it in a way of, what are the actions that I need? And if I were to take those actions, I would almost be guaranteed the result that I want to achieve. Okay. So let's use just a basic example here. So for the individual that said that you wanted to hire a junior attorney, so if I was going through that process myself, I might start listing out things like, how many resumes am I willing to look at in order to find the right person? Where am I willing to go to find that candidate? What do I want my interview process to look like? What do I want my onboarding process to look like? So I'd get very detailed with exactly every single one of the steps. Don't try to put them in order, just get them out of your brain, okay? That then can be structured into something a little bit more formal. This also is going to dovetail into our next one, which is, what resources are you going to need? So I love to think about, who do you need to become? What do you need to learn? What do you need to invest in? What do you need to give up? What do you need to practice? What do you need to fail at? You know, all of the things, those are all, to me, resources. It helps you to uncover and become aware of what you have within your grasp and what you don't. Who needs to be a part of these efforts and what are their roles? What space and accountability structure needs to be created that's going to just allow for us to get that work done? Getting all of that out, again, this is the awareness phase. You're just trying to create a structure so that you can become crystal clear about what's going on inside of your business and what you need to overcome. Number 8 is the obstacle piece. So what are the strategies that you're going to use to overcome these obstacles? I think about a stop sign. And, you know, if we're able to anticipate the stop signs in life, right? So using the road trip analogy from before, you know, are we able to anticipate the stops along the way, the roadblocks, the potholes, the construction, the detours, the possibility of a flat tire? We can devise a plan for how to overcome those obstacles if we don't just sit there and you know, believe that they're not going to happen. If we design that plan, then we can avoid completely getting derailed. Okay, so you're not going to be able to anticipate everything, but most of the things you can identify before they become major problems. So obstacles that I tend to see inside of businesses that can be anticipated are things like loss of a key employee, not getting the number of clients that you desire in your launch, your technology issues. I'm dealing with that right now. I thought that one technology was going to work and it didn't. And I anticipated that it might not work. And so when I got there and realized that it didn't work and my brain wanted me to offer me all of this junk, like, here we go again, this is going to be super hard, I was like, we knew something like this could happen, so we're not going to play that game. I'm just going to go back to thinking, this is fine. We've got a plan for this. We can move on to the next option, right? Maybe you're trying to source new funding and that funding doesn't come through. Just not wanting to do the work or feeling overwhelmed. Like, that's part of the process. Of course you're feeling overwhelmed. You're trying something new. You're trying to get a result in your business that you've never gotten before. So it's going to be hard, and that's okay. So how do you anticipate some of those obstacles? That way they don't become so much larger of a problem than they need to be. Okay. Sometimes we can make that slight bump in the road mean that we're never going to make it and that we should probably turn back or change our goal. So instead of up-leveling our commitment, we tend to downgrade our goal. So I want you to just think about, how can we anticipate some of those? All right. Number 9, what do you believe about your ability to create these results? Okay, let's open the chat feature up again. I want you to think about this question. What do you believe about your ability to create the result that you desire to create in the next 12 months? Okay. This might include some deeper questions about how you see yourself in general. I'll give you a little story. I was working with this team. There were two business partners. One, basically, the two of them were fantastic technicians at what they did, right? And their business essentially built up around them. So they were wonderful at their craft, but they didn't see themselves as business leaders, all right? And so as their business was growing, they found themselves 13 years into the future, and they were dealing with some employee challenges. And essentially, they had unmotivated team members. Everybody was kind of in it for themselves. They were rowing in different directions. And what they wanted was for everybody to start rowing in the same direction without a ton of effort on their part, a ton of direction on their part. But what they believed about themselves and what they believed about their ability to create that result was that they actually didn't see themselves as leaders. Okay. They didn't want to be leaders. And what they finally discovered that was really key to solving their issues was that they had to embrace that idea of being a leader and that persona of being a leader, and then all of the behaviors that came along with that persona. So I go back to this question for you. What is it that you believe about your own ability to create those results? And you know what? Sometimes this is going to be ugly, right? We don't just share the positives here. So I'd like to hear some of the negatives. It's always great if we've got some positive thoughts, but here's the deal. As we talked about before, we've got those 60,000 thoughts running through our brain. 70 to 80% of those are negative. So the ones that we really want to understand here are the ones that are going to keep us from taking action. Okay. So what are some of the reasons that your brain says that you can't? Okay, so let me read some of these. Let's see. Okay, so this one says, I don't have enough time to go through this process. I love that one. Your brain is working perfectly, right? So you're thinking, I don't have enough time to go through this process. And your brain is offering you that junk, right? It wants to avoid the pain, but it's not necessarily true. The fact that like you don't have enough time to go through this process, but it's super believable. Okay. So I want you to ask yourself, how do you feel when you think that you don't have enough time to go through this process? My guess is that you're feeling overwhelmed or some other form of that that's not super fun to feel. And when you feel overwhelmed, you shut down and you avoid going through this process, okay? Or you might do what we talked about earlier. You might jump all the way to that action phase and just, skip the planning portion, but go straight to action, because this part feels like it's not necessarily something that you have to go through, but you have to get to the work. And that's a good one. Okay, so here's another one. My goal is lofty. Fantastic. Okay, so my goal is lofty. How do you feel when you think your goal is too lofty? Okay. And then when you feel that way, what are the actions that you are taking towards your goal when you feel whatever it is that you feel when you're thinking, my goal is lofty? That's a great one. Here's another one. We can get there, but it's going to take work. That's super interesting. So we had a similar one like this on our call yesterday in the retirement cohort. I wonder how you are feeling when you think that, right? So if you're thinking we can get there, but it's going to take work, right? You've got a positive of we can get there, but you've got the qualifier of but it's going to take work. So really, how do you feel about that second portion of the thought sentence inside of your brain of, but it's going to take work? If you feel great when you think that thought, it could be a great thought for you. I just want you to check in and see exactly how it feels inside of your body when you're thinking it, because it could be kind of sneaky, right? We can get there, but it's going to take work. How does that feel? Let's see. I'm doing too many different things at once. Great. Again. So how does that feel when you think I'm doing too many things at once, right? Because the feeling that comes from the thought is going to be then what drives your action. And if I would think, I'm doing too many things, different things at once, again, that creates maybe some overwhelm. Yeah, very overwhelmed. Yeah, not surprised at all. So when you're feeling overwhelmed, what do? Most of us, we shut down, or we jump from thing to thing to thing without having a focus. And as a result, we don't make progress in any one particular area. Recently, I've been shutting down. Yeah. So that's exactly where this is, the paying attention to what we are thinking and the way that it's making us feel will show us the actions that we're taking and whether or not we're going to get the results. So what's super interesting is once we have that awareness, we can then decide how do we want to change what it is that we are going to be thinking, okay? Because these beliefs, they're just thoughts that we're thinking on repeat over and over and over again, so much so that we believe that they are true. And that belief in those thoughts is what generates that very powerful emotion, right? And the emotions drive us either to action or inactions. So becoming aware of those non-conscious junk thoughts inside of our head will give us the ability to question it and then replace it with something else better in the future, right? So that's what brings us to number 10 here. What thoughts will drive your actions? What thoughts will drive the actions that you desire to take that will ultimately get you the results that you want to get? Okay. So this is where we can counteract that negative thought with positive ones that drive our desired actions. I don't want you to skip number 9. You got to create the awareness like we just talked before we can shift our focus over to more intentional thinking. And then sometimes here, the simpler, the better. Okay. If anybody's got some examples of thoughts that you are using to drive you to action when you maybe notice some of the negative thoughts inside of your brain, what do you replace it with? If anybody's got some examples that you want to share, that would be great. I'll share some of the ones that I have. I've actually got a whole list of them over here on my wall that I think intentionally when my brain offers me junk. So my number one favorite thing is to add the qualifier, and that's okay, to the end of the thoughts. Okay. So this might be something like, this is hard, and that's okay. Or this person's an idiot, and that's okay. Or we didn't get our desired results, and that's okay. Right. So adding that qualifier at the end really helps us to switch ourselves back into action mode, just to like keep going. Another one that I think is just do one thing to move the business forward. Another one is I've got a plan for that. Or I can be scared and do it anyway. Or this isn't a problem. My brain just thinks it is. I love saying that one, where we kind of disassociate from our brain and not make it about us and the fact that we're thinking that negative thought, but rather that our brain is kind of doing what it does, running on its own. It's having a mind of its own. In fact, some of you may have heard the fact that I have named my brain Penny for your thoughts. That way, occasionally, Penny will come up with some pretty crazy stuff. And I'll be like, oh, that's just Penny doing what Penny's doing. She's just coming up with things. She's telling me that this is going to be hard. This is going to be difficult. This is never going to work, whatever the case may be. And then I get to come in and be like, nope, we're just not going to pay attention to that today. We're going to come up with this new way to think about it. Okay. So those are some of the ways that you can be thinking about this process. Again, those are the 10 questions that you can ask to create a really solid plan in order to just automatically get the results, right? If you've got that plan in place and then you work the plan, then you're just going to end up getting the results. For everybody that wants to dive deeper into this, I've created a worksheet for you that takes you through those questions and then adds a little bit more color in there as well. So you can go in and you can download those resources from your coaching portal. All right. So what I'd love to do is we want to dive into some coaching here. This is the fun part, right? So how this works is that you can either submit through the chat feature if you want to get coached. If there's something that you just want me to read, I'd be happy to read it off, a scenario that you're working with. We do have somebody who has, we've actually got 2 folks that have submitted requests ahead of time. So either Adam or Amy. Yep. So I'm going to pull on Amy first. And what we're going to do here is we are going to do a little bit of coaching. When I pull Amy on, I'm going to promote her to panelist. And then if anybody else wants to get coached afterwards, we'll just keep going as long as we have time. Okay. And then last thing that I'll say before I pull Amy on, if you do want to submit a coaching request like these 2 have done, go into your portal, submit the request, and then, we're going to pull you on, Amy. So submit your request, and then we will put you at the front of the line so that you get priority when we are doing coaching. All right. Okay. So I'm going to shut down my screen. We're going to pull Amy over. And Amy, when you get on, you can go ahead and turn your video on. Hi. Oh, there you go. I can hear you now. So what would you like to get coached on?
So I have many things going in my business and my businesses. And this whole idea of like, it's a lot of work. The work is hard. It's got to be hard. And getting into that frustration mindset or even exhaustion mindset, and what's interesting, I'll just say this as background for me, typically I'm like so pumped about what I'm doing, but as soon as I start to have like a little bit of fun or relax a little bit or take a little bit of a back seat, it's like I get out of balance, and all of a sudden, yeah.
How do you get out of balance?
So, because I don't want to go back to the schedule, and I don't want to go back to managing all the people, and I don't want to go back to doing all the things that it takes to thrive in what it is that I'm creating right now. It's a lot, and so I have that story of it's a lot, which I know is not a true story, but it's the keeping myself on track, if that makes sense.
So how do you feel when you're thinking that it's a lot?
Oh, horrible, heavy, tired. Like I don't want to do it. And like, I wish somebody else would run this for me.
And what do you end up doing?
Well, I try to, more often than not, what I do is I end up meditating and getting myself back into a space of peace and calm, and then back on track. It depends on if there's some distractions in my space, and if there are, then I get distracted, and that's what's been happening the past few weeks at least. So I'm creating balance with those things.
Is it a problem that you get distracted from time to time?
No, it's just different for me. So I judge it, and I judge myself because I'm a high performer, high achiever, and I have many goals that I'd like to accomplish on time. And I have a team that's waiting on those accomplishments in order to take those things and run with them.
Yeah. But that judgment, when you hold that judgment for the way that you're operating and the wanting to be back into this kind of flow state where things are a little bit easier, what does that judgment do to you?
It makes me feel wrong, bad, and it slows me down.
Yeah. But are any of those things true? No. What would it look like for you to have more grace for yourself when you're experiencing that judgment?
Giving myself more space and time to just be.
When you're experiencing the judgment, what are some of the actions? Like, what are some of the things that you're doing that are coming from a place of judgment?
I have so much to do and not enough time to do it. And I get into this whole like story of how I have to tell everybody all
Right.
of the things. Yeah.
And that also plays back to, I don't know if you were on for that portion where we were talking about the dopamine hits, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're feeling the pain.
Mm-hmm. I listened to that, by the way. I listened to that podcast. So I actually just listened to it like whatever it was 2 weeks ago or something.
Oh my God. Such a great podcast.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're getting the dopamine hit, right? And you're avoiding some of that pain that you're feeling, but the pain is still there and it's still underneath. So going back to that place of grace, what does that really look like for you? How do you remind yourself that this is just part of the process and it doesn't have to be perfect all the time?
I think setting up a better structure as my energy level heightens and as I produce more is one of the things that I could do to give myself more grace, because like as the container expands, it's like the punishment gets more if I'm not on it, you know, because when I'm not on it, or I'm not, you know, meeting all of the tasks, then there's such a fear of falling behind. And quite frankly, it just happens, right? It's like, if you don't put fuel in the car, it's not going to go. So the grace, I guess, would look like, you know, I mean, that's a good question, Lindsay. I'm not 100% sure I know the answer to that.
Well, it might be just something that you want to sit down and think about.
Yeah, I think so.
Because as a high performer, you believe that you need to operate in a certain way in order for that car to go. But I'd bet that there's also times in your business where you are totally in flow and not having to operate at that level and things are just happening. It's natural for us to judge.
And when I'm in that space, I do know that I give myself breaks, long breaks, you know, even day breaks. So that's what I was thinking about with the grace periods, is maybe putting more of those in, and taking more time to just be in nothing.
Yeah.
And thinking.
Yeah.
I think it can be challenging as a high performer when you, and I'm just speaking merely out of whatever's coming to me right now, but I think it can be challenging as a high performer when you are moving so fast, and you're moving faster than most of the population. And I'm sure that most of the people on this call can identify with that, you know, and so like, but you don't realize that you're moving that fast. You know, so when you finally slow down, there's that, like, there's almost a high that also comes from that.
Yep. And operating in that space. But it's not always going to be the highs. We also have to experience the lows. And knowing that they're going to come and being able to anticipate they're going to be able to come. Yeah. Right. And see them as being some obstacles that we can come up with a strategy to employ that will make those dips a little less deep. And that goes back to the, how do we create the grace? What do you need to put in place? And you already said that there are times where you create some more space for yourself and then others that you don't.
You know, Lindsay, what comes up for me too right now is also more time alone. I think that's really important. Thank you for that.
All right. Sit with that. Come up with your plan. I thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right. I'm going to push you back. Let's see. And then we've got time maybe for a quick one more. If I can figure out why I can't get you to pop back. Let me try this. I can't see your name, Amy. Why not? Hey, this happened last time. I'm not able to push you back.
What if
Hold
I
on.
just leave?
Here you go.
Okay.
Make change role. There you go. Did it go back? There we are. All right. So we've got 5 more minutes. Adam, I'm going to pull you on and see if there's anything that we can get through in that 5 minutes. Okay. So as he's coming on here. Right. Hi.
Yes.
And you can feel free to put your video on or not. Either way, that's something that I want everybody to know, is that you don't have to put your video on. There's the video. All right. So what's going on in your business? How can I help?
Oh, well, I'm the spinning too many plates at once guy on the call here. So, first of all, I can relate to your previous conversation there and understand that the high speed movement and the high that comes from that, and then there are definitely lows. And I am on a low side right now, where I took some time for myself, not at a great length, but more in my day-to-day schedule, and said I'm going to put limitations around the hours that I work and work on being happy with the tasks that I complete and the things that I'm doing, and looking at it from the positive, not the what I have not completed yet. And it was going well, but then it now feels like things have started to build up and things are not getting completed because I'm trying to stay within those parameters of, well, this is going to be my amount of hours that I'm going to work, and that's going to be it. And eventually things are going to get done and everything's going to be okay. And it doesn't all have to be done right now. So I'm on the low end because that feeling of overwhelming items are built up, and it's harder to feel the progress. Although it's interesting because even when saying that, I know that one of my issues and why I slowed down was because it was a matter of doing a ton and not necessarily seeing like you're experiencing the progress and enjoying the journey. Clearly I haven't yet to figure out how to enjoy that thoroughly. But yeah, for me, it's just trying to find the balance of giving myself more time on each day to do the things that I want to do with myself, and that maybe not necessarily directly work related.
Okay. So giving yourself more time to do the things that you want during the day. That's the result that you're wanting to create for yourself.
Yes.
So what do you need to do in order to make that happen?
Well, I thought it would be being more strict about stop times and start times. I'd like to do time blocking. I feel like that would be a beneficial method to experiencing that. But then I tend to find, well, I need more time in this one block for this one business or this, and then it gets taken away from the other because I'm constantly evaluating urgent versus important versus not urgent versus important, the entire quadrant there, where each task is. It's even hard to talk about because I'm just in a very overwhelmed spot at this point in time.
Yeah. Well, and from that place of overwhelm, it's so hard to then get clear about what it is that you need to do that's going to get you out of overwhelm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've just been literally, because of it, it's kind of like I'm falling further because the overwhelming is becoming more overwhelming. And I try to get back to that motivational point. I do better when I'm staying at a very high pace, high energy, no breaks, no breathing, just go, because at least I can keep going and I can run that motor at a high RPM for a very long time. I just know that it's not a great way to live like that. So trying to learn how to downshift and still stay in the race.
Yeah. So go back to this place of overwhelm, right? When you are feeling the overwhelm, where is that coming from? What are you thinking that's creating the feeling of overwhelm?
I'm thinking that I'm not getting the tasks that need to be done.
Okay. Is that true?
I mean, I think so because I at least keep telling myself that. And there are ones that are still, there's always things sitting there that need to get done.
Okay. So even if it is true, is it helpful?
No.
No.
It's
And why?
because it's self-defeating, and it's really it's a negative feedback loop that keeps that weight on my chest instead of me getting out from under it. And so creating lists and things, trying different methods to get out from under it, or the idea of getting up and walking for a little while. But I tend to get caught coming back and then saying, okay, I'm right back into this again. It's that I'm making small progression out, but then fall back in.
Right. And this is for everybody that's listening in on this, right? What you just talked about is you were trying to take actions to get you out of the overwhelm.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that you said in there that's like really helpful is the getting up and going for a walk, because that's going to reset your nervous system and will bring you back into more of a regulated state. However, you can't act your way out of overwhelm. Overwhelm doesn't come from the number of things that are on your plate. It comes from you thinking there are too many things, or things are going to fall through the cracks, or all of the thoughts that you're having about it. Right. And so having that awareness, even if you believe those thoughts to be true, what you said was that it's still keeping you in overwhelm and it's perpetuating the cycle. So what could you be thinking instead about the tasks that are on your plate?
I could be thinking that as long as I am getting them done, even though more may be there, they're not overwhelming me. I am overwhelming myself. I am in control of how I am reacting or responding to these tasks. They physically don't have the ability to overwhelm me. They're not, physical objects sitting on my chest or on my back or on my head, or I'm not actually literally spinning plates that I could drop. It's simply me creating that mindset that I am feeling overwhelmed. And if I can create the mindset that I'm feeling overwhelmed, I should be able to create the mindset that I am feeling productive and achieving or completing the tasks that need to be completed.
Yeah, you can most certainly think yourself to that place. And that's where we will eventually want to get you. But when you go back and you kind of think about the overwhelm even, right? The actions that you take from overwhelm are more inactions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you're in inactions, you're not going to be able to clean up all of the things on the list. It's just going to keep piling up more and more and more, right? So when we're trying to switch ourselves into that positive thought space, we're like, okay, yeah, conceptually, I understand that it's not physical plates that are spinning that's causing me to feel overwhelmed. It's my brain. We can get that and we can intellectually understand it, but it still can be hard for us to make that jump over to the place of like, okay, yeah, but this isn't super overwhelming. Like I'm just overwhelming myself. It's not the amount of tasks. But when we think about the fact that from the place of overwhelm, we're not taking action.
Mm-hmm.
then it can be easier for us to switch over to that more positive place to say, okay, you know what? I'm going to give this a shot. I'm going to think the more positive thought that makes me feel more productive, because from that place of feeling more productive, I am actually more productive. Doesn't matter if the thought that you had that was negative is true, right?
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter. As long as you can say, yeah, you know what, whatever it is that I'm thinking right now, even if it is true, is it helping me? And if the answer is no, that's when we can switch over to more of that positive thinking.
Yeah.
How does it feel when you think that this is something that I have in control?
When I am able to put my mind in that place and say, oh, I have control over this. This is just another day, and I'm get these things done, and we'll be good. Then you can feel that overwhelm go away. It's it lightens up, and so it's just I guess a matter of being continuously doing that to start building that momentum so that it doesn't have a chance to creep back in and start weighing back down again.
How do you build muscle?
Repetition.
Repetition. So how do you build thought muscle?
Just to keep on reminding myself to keep coming from that place of light and airy and non-overwhelmed starting point, and saying everything, reminding myself that I'm not actually overwhelmed, and doing it, multiple times a day, and then being able to extend the length of holding that position and that mindset.
It also comes, and this will be the last thing, I know that we're 7 minutes over here, so I'll let you go here in a second. It also comes from dropping the judgment of being overwhelmed. When we judge ourselves for the fact that we're overwhelmed, it almost is like, oh God, I'm overwhelmed. I shouldn't be overwhelmed. I should come up with a better way to handle this. This is like, I shouldn't be in this place. But when you're thinking the thoughts that you're thinking, of course you're going to be overwhelmed. Of course you're going to be overwhelmed. And your brain's going to go to that place because you've got the thought process in the back of your mind that in the past has created the feelings of overwhelm. So it knows how to think those thoughts. It thinks them really, really well. Yeah. So when it comes up, you get to be like, yeah, of course I'm overwhelmed right now, naturally. But I also know how to handle this overwhelm. Here it is. No big deal. I'm going to be overwhelmed for a second. I'm going to process it instead of resisting against it. And once I process through it, then I'm able to switch over to that positive thought that I've decided I want to think with repetition until it just becomes second nature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You got this.
We're going to do this.
You're going to do this. All right. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. I appreciate it. Okay. So I'm going to put you back. Everybody, thank you so much for being here today. And I hope that if anybody is interested in getting coached in the future, you can go ahead and you can submit that request. I don't know why this is just not sending you back. I don't know. We're going to try this one more time. We'll go change role to attendee. There you go. Okay. We're going to get this. See, I'm trying new things, guys. I'm trying new things. This is what I want you to do. I want you to go out. I want you to try new things. Recognize that they're not always going to work the way that you want. Things are going to be hard. It's perfectly fine. Go out there and try them anyways. All right. I look forward to seeing you all next month. Hope you have a good one. Take care.